Hello and welcome to the Weather Quarter. I'm Jenny Woodward. As we approach the end of the year, much of the country is facing the prospect of a wet summer fuelled by a late onset La Nina. The weather pattern's already made its presence felt with strong signals in Southeast Asia. Flooding in Thailand lasted for months and the cost is almost immeasurable. Without putting a figure on it, the social and economic losses are extraordinary, not to mention the cost in human lives. ABC correspondent Zoe Daniel has been following the drama.
More than 25 areas of Bangkok's 50 districts have now experienced some flooding, obviously some areas worse than others. I guess what everyone's still waiting to see is how much worse it will get as that water continues to flow from the north, the high tides push into the river and push the river over its banks.
People here are waiting for the water to go down so they can go home, but there are crocodiles in my area. I don't dare go back there.
It's a united front against the flood, though they know their efforts will have limited effect. It's hard to see a future yet. The mere thought of it, such a challenge.
There is really nothing left. Everything we'd collected, everything I loved is gone, and I have no idea what to do next.
Back home, and since temperatures have started warming up, there's been a lot of storm activity over central and eastern parts of the continent. There's also been plenty of warnings for heavy rain, wild winds and hail. Victoria experienced some violent storms that caused havoc over a wide area of the state, and Kerry Ritchie looked at the aftermath after skies cleared.
It's been quite a fortnight for Bellbridge and its 220 or so residents. There was a factory fire a week ago and now this. According to one local, the mini tornado is the biggest news in Bellbridge for 20 years. Sadly for some, it's come at the worst possible time.
It's just a pity that it had to happen to us. My parents have been through a lot lately and this just tops it.
The storm snapped these gum trees in half. Nera Blackburn filmed the mini tornado as it approached over Lake Hume.
Come through there, knocked all those trees over and straight across the water, picked up all the water and then come up that side of the town.
This is what the storm looked like on time-lapse when it rolled into Wodonga. The wild weather hit Melbourne's southeast around 6:30 last night. The owners of this car in Frankston were debating whether to move it when it was squashed. The next-door neighbours watched the tree fall from their window.
Look, we had the acorns from the tree virtually running vertical, hitting our windows, which is a good sort of 10 metres away.
St Kilda, can you say again on 365 over?
SES volunteers had to rescue a number of people from their cars stuck in floodwaters. Most call-outs involve flash flooding. The garage of this home in Langwarrin was swamped. The owners managed to save their cars and boxes of photos.
Whoever designed our driveway, I don't think did a very good job. I'm no engineer, but driveways are traditionally for cars, in my opinion, not for water.
All up, the SES received more than 1,000 calls for assistance from around the state.
Kerry Ritchie reporting there. Well, still with the impact of wild weather, and it's been well documented that Queensland's summer of disasters had a devastating impact on the marine life in the Sunshine State. But now the impacts are being felt further south. Starving sea turtles are washing up on northern New South Wales beaches. Tom Forbes has the story.
12 turtles have been rescued in the past fortnight. 4 have survived. The high rate of strandings is leaving wildlife carers cold.
Majority of the turtles that have washed up are hawksbill turtles, which are a critically endangered species already under a lot of threat. So any escalation in the stranding numbers of that species in particular are of great concern to us.
Necropsies found 40% of the starving turtles had been eating plastic. One of the survivors had floating syndrome, which can be caused by either ingesting plastic, parasite infestation or lung infection. All of the rescued animals were covered in barnacles.
So we know when a turtle arrives that if it has a very high barnacle load, that it's been sick for an extended period of time.
The animals are starving because seagrass beds have been decimated by summer floods and cyclones, which dumped fresh water and sediment on the fragile food source. Most of the turtles are washing up here on Belongil Beach at Byron Bay, and the likely cause is the emaciated animals are travelling further afield to find food and basically running out of energy. It's a similar story along the Queensland coast, with more than 1,200 turtles and dugongs rescued this year.
Let's just hope that this summer brings us some nice tropical weather rather than the intense extreme weather that we've seen in the last year or so.
Wildlife carers in Townsville will release 5 rehabilitated turtles back into the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park later this week.
The Climate Commission has issued a grim warning to residents and authorities in the Northern Territory. It's going to get hotter, and extreme weather events like cyclones and bushfires will become more frequent. Not great news for residents who are still recovering from the last wet season, which was the wettest on record. The Weather Bureau's Dr Andrew Tupper discussed the outlook with 7:30's Louisa Rebgetz.
Dr Andrew Tupper, welcome to the program.
Pleasure.
It was a huge wet season last year. Can we expect the same again this year?
One thing I've learned from being here 20 years in the Bureau is expect the unexpected. We're expecting at least a solid wet season, hopefully not as extreme as the last one, but pretty full on.
There was dozens of houses flooded last year as a result of the heavy rain. Should property owners be prepared for a similar event?
We are looking at another La Nina, not as strong, but still significant there. So we should always prepare for flooding and cyclones, but there's probably a bit of extra reason.
When would we expect our first cyclone?
Yeah, there's a couple of things going on. Firstly, with the La Nina, the sea surface temperatures are a little bit warmer than normal, and so the average monsoon onset, which is also in cyclones form, is probably brought forward a little bit, meaning mid-December.
Dr Andrew Tupper, thanks for talking with us.
Real pleasure, thank you.
There's a calendar on the market that outsells many others. It's produced in Australia and features outstanding weather pictures gathered from around the country. ABC weather presenter Vanessa O'Hanlon went to the Weather Bureau for a sneak peek.
This vast land of ours has some of the best scenery in the world. Combine it with weather phenomena and you get some of the most stunning photography you can ever imagine. Now in its 28th year of publication, the Bureau of Meteorology has just released their 2012 weather calendar. Joining me today to talk about this calendar, it's Senior Meteorologist Craig Burke. Thanks for joining us today, Craig.
It's my pleasure.
Now what's this year's theme?
Well, this year's theme is a wider environmental perspective. We have a range of different photographs featured in the calendar covering storms, a whole range of phenomena which are quite spectacular, and yeah, it's just been released.
And what made you choose this particular theme?
Well, the theme is basically building on what we've achieved over the last 100 years. Traditionally, we've sort of been trying to understand weather and climate, and observe the weather and forecast out to a few days. But now we're trying to kind of expand on that even further and provide even more detail for industry and for people and for governments to make critical decisions for their operations. And that's it's kind of the direction we're sort of more heading in the 21st century.
And of course we've had some amazing weather all over this country this year. Storms, flooding, drought over in Perth. What made you choose the photos that you've chosen?
Well, we always try to keep a broad range of photos for the calendar for each year. But what we've experienced this year, or in particular, has been a very strong La Nina phenomena, which has resulted in extensive flooding across northern Australia and eastern parts of the country, right through the summer in particular. And that's caused a lot of devastation for both regional communities and also through central areas. So it's certainly had a big impact on the nation this year.
It certainly has. Now there's 13 photos, all as stunning. Can you tell me more about the front cover?
Yes, the front cover is quite a unique shot actually. It's actually taken at our Australian base in Antarctica at Mawson, the Mawson base, and what we're actually viewing is a phenomenon known as the Aurora Australis. Now that essentially is caused by the magnetic field surrounding the Earth, where we've got upper level particles that are interacting with it, and it results in polar regions with this particular green light, and that's kind of the feature on the front cover.
Well, La Nina was quite devastating, of course, for places like Queensland. There were storms through New South Wales and Victoria as well. But there was a positive. Lake Eyre filled up, or nearly filled up. We had a lot more water than what we've seen in years. One of my favourite photos is actually the filling up of Lake Eyre. Can you tell me more about that photo?
That photo is absolutely stunning. After the rain across summer, and we saw the water levels increase through many rivers and dams across Australia, Lake Eyre in particular filled up quite high. And the shot that we actually see, or we actually observe there, is basically a reflection of some middle-level cloud, alto cumulus cloud, and that just happened to be the cloud feature that was occurring over that part of Lake Eyre.
Senior meteorologist Craig Burke joining us today about the 2012 Bureau of Meteorology's weather calendar. Make sure you grab yourself a copy. I'm off to find out how I can take some stunning photos for myself and hopefully make it in the next edition.
Aren't they spectacular? And all the calendar photos are donated. Submissions are now open for the 2013 calendar. Go to the Weather Bureau's website if you'd like to contribute. And that just about wraps up the show for this time, but before we go, here's a great snap taken by Dave Drummond in Roma. You can see that the sky is checked with contrails. Who would have thought there'd be so much air traffic over the interior? I'd love to hear from you too. You can contact us at weatherquarter@your.abc.net.au, and you can find me on Twitter @JennyWeather. I'm Jenny Woodward. Bye for now.